Hey guys, so today we're going to talk about something that no one really talks about, is the fact that you can change your watch without too much money. Everyone wants, from what I've seen in my previous videos, they say, hey, I have so many watches, I'm collecting so many different models, and that's fine. But at the same time, you don't need to, okay? You can have a much better choice of straps, and that's what we're going to talk about. So today I have straps from Wristwatch Me. His name is Reef Pilgrim. He's from Edmonton, Canada. I've been dealing with him for roughly 10 years, more or less. Super nice guy. He's been making straps for maybe 7, 8 years, I think. From his humble beginnings of making a few straps to now being able to deliver something really consistent of great quality, and that's what I want to talk about. The fact that you can basically change your watch with a few dollars, less than $200. You can have a whole new watch, whole new look, and with a lot of quality, with uniqueness to each one of the straps you're gonna buy from a guy like Reef. And I thank him very much to be able to actually purchase that many straps at once. It's a pleasure, and we have here something that's not seen every day. You can actually contact him directly on his Instagram, Wristwatch Me. He's doing some really unique pieces, colorful, young, with a lot of taste, a lot of Italian letters. Again, it's not a paid promotion. I'm not doing this to do anything else but to actually give you a choice of straps. I do work with different suppliers, Rios, I work with Combat Straps, Aaron Bespoke, but here I'm able to actually have a lot of straps from Reef, and I have a lot of respect for him. He's young, he's dynamic, and he does have, I think, one of the most classy tastes in terms of regular thin straps of great quality. Being able to work with him for so many years has driven me towards the path of having a bunch of different straps, and being able to match watches with the straps is always interesting. In the past year, I've had people ask me at least 10 times if I'm the one matching the watches with the straps. And honestly, it's not very hard when you have so many good straps on hands and so many good choices, so many colors, so many, different patterns and stitching colors and everything that actually goes and amplifies the watch itself. Even right now, I just did a little setup with the strap, and it bugs the hell out of me to actually see a gold buckle on the strap matching. So everything just clicks in place with a lot of experience. Obviously, you see what kind of works, what doesn't, and it's really easy when you have so many different ones. I feel like keeping a lot of those, honestly. It's really cool. I just got it packaged 2 days ago, and it's fun, it's invigorating, and honestly, Reef is going to do really well, I think, with his website. Enough talk about that. Let's dive in. Let's see what kind of propositions we have here. Again, you have so many choices online, from cheap to expensive. What we have here is somewhat in the mid-range, around the $100 US. A lot of people ask me, why am I putting leather bands on vintage watches instead of their metal counterparts? A lot of the times, I've seen those watches on bracelets all my life. I've been in this for a very long time. But actually having the choice of using a leather band that's very comfortable, a leather band that's really colorful, unique, just changes the whole perspective of the watch. And what's cool about it is that it actually tones down the watch in many ways. Let's say if I'm wearing a Submariner on the leather band, or a GMT, or any type of vintage watch, including whatever, it could be a vintage Zenith or whatnot. Actually, what happens is that cohesion between the watch and the leather band is going to make the watch stand out, but more in a polite way than, let's say, if you have a Rolex and an Oyster bracelet. Obviously you're gonna recognize it from miles away. If you want to use something that's more toned down, more low-key, try a leather band. Again, it's not for everyone, but I'd say it will change your life, and it will save you a ton of money. For a lot of people, changing a strap is the equivalent of changing the watch. And for a lot of people who actually tend to buy watches just to fill in a gap, just to find a way of, changing for just changing, or just having something new. Changing for change's sake in this industry is maybe the worst way of buying a watch, and that's why I tell people, do your research, do everything that you can to actually have something of quality, and that will actually fill in that gap. I find that there are so many companies out there right now that are doing pretty well. Only thing with my experience, the cheaper the band, normally the least it will resist through time. So if you do like a band and you do enjoy that color, obviously it will age with you, it will age with the watch, with your experiences, and you'll have some kind of an attachment to that strap. What happens with the cheap straps that I've seen in the past, the straps tend to actually fall apart. They tend to literally disintegrate. The ones that also have padding, okay, interior padding, they're poorly built. So the more layers you have on a strap, the more prone it is to actually delaminate. So you're gonna see basically straps that are, I don't know, from Hirsch or from, I've seen a lot of Hamiltons in the past that are less than a couple of years old, and then the whole strap just falls apart. It just from here on, or let's say here, okay, it will actually open up through the middle, and then you have like a bubble on the bottom and then a bubble on the top. I've never had any issues with Aaron as well. I'd say they are really good. Reef straps, it's very impressive because they seem really thin. For a lot of people, they tell me, hey, it's not thick enough. I'm like, try it, see how it works. And a lot of people never come back to a regular, cheap strap, or, something that just looks good but actually destroys itself or disintegrates within 6 to 8 months max. Reef does have the proper compound balance in, durability, quality, and then the looks. And obviously there are different straps. I find that his do work a lot with my philosophy around watches. I like thin straps, like something that actually hugs your wrist really well, and that's actually very comfortable overall. By the end of the video, I'm wearing right now a sub. I will choose one of the straps for myself most probably, and let's see how that goes, and I'll give you a little feedback about that. So for the sake of the video, what I did is that I pulled out a few classic watches, a few sports watches, and a few classic ones, and a vintage Whitnauer that I have on the website. What's cool about those is that you're gonna see a bit of gold, a bit of two-tone, and a bit of classic sports stainless steel watches, and you're going to see that different straps will actually heighten the color of the dial, will actually match very well with the color of the dial. If you have a dial that patinated for a vintage one, it's also very cool to actually match. Let's say if the dial turned a bit green, a bit more brown, different colors, or let's say from a blue dial it turned like a goldish brown color dial. It's really fun to actually complement the dials themselves with a proper strap, okay? It's not only a regular strap. Those colors, those patterns, and the simplicity of the strap might actually make it look a lot better than you're thinking. I always suggest people trying different straps on their watches. Obviously, people come to me with a certain expectation, each one his own taste. Different watches will require different straps or will have a different history pattern with different straps. Let's go here with something very classic, okay? Everyone will recognize that we have here a racing pattern on this black strap. What's cool about those is the perforations do match perfectly with sports watches, with racing, with anything that has to do with the 60s and earlier on, but mostly the 60s. It's an era that really created very, very classic watches, and those straps are just amazing. Very well perforated, all the holes are even, everything is pretty cool. And also there's always that cool thing where Reef does a different loop color that actually matches with the stitching, or actually goes, you will look at different ones but they have different colors on the back. Some of them are really insane. So for what this is, that's a really classic strap that we see very often. Let's go with something here that's not very common as well. This is more of a pilot's type of band that actually tapers down a few millimeters all of a sudden here. I find those really cool just because they are tapering from bigger to smaller, and they're perfect for field watches, for pilot's watches. There's different iterations from IWC, which is very popular. Then you have the khaki field, that's also very popular as well. Between all those German brands and American brands that are actually making those as well, I find that usually the original straps are not very good, and this is a very good choice to replace them with. And I find that overall the execution is amazing. If we go with the classic straps, I'll pick up any one of them. You can go with minimal strap stitching at the end here, and a lot of people talk to me about how uncomfortable most of the straps they're buying are overall, just because a lot of them have a huge padding in them. For vintage watches and for a lot of classic watches, including a Lange or anything that's very subtle, you know, in terms of looks, very simple, I'd say that a strap that's very thin, that's very comfortable, will actually help you enjoy your watch a lot better. And the comfort zone is right there. It's perfect. We'll do some macro pictures as well to show you how the integration of different layers of leather are done here. I find that overall it's very well executed and the layering is just perfect. If you do choose to go with custom straps, you can again call Reef and ask him to match the collar sides with the stitching itself. Then you have again the loops that are also matching. So we would see those straps back in the 50s, the 60s. I have a few of them from that era in my pile of straps, but to actually have the comfort of a new Italian leather, and also to have something that's going to be a lot more durable than a strap that's already 50 to 75 years old. In some cases, you know, the leather is already old, it's already dry, and depending on how it was kept around, if it was in a cold basement and humidity, obviously it's not a strap that's going to last you maybe sometimes more than a few wears, or you're just going to bend it and it's going to fall apart. I find that Reef is really bringing back that era, which is perfect to me for those vintage watches that I sell all the time, and he just knows and has the eye for a proper design that we rarely see. Also, something that's cool here that you don't see a lot is those double hoop type of buckles. You don't even need the double loops, you can even remove them. So whichever makes more sense for you, you can actually remove one of the loops or even two. You can basically use the double buckle to actually fit the watch if you have a big wrist, and then you can use multiple little hoops if you want to use them. Let's try different strap patterns, see how it goes. If you guys like it, let me know, whichever made more sense for you. Starting off with something extremely simple. So every time you're gonna start using some tools to remove your strap, know what size you need first. So we're gonna measure here. We are 20 millimeters. I do have a few watches here, the GMT, the Submariner. So we have a strap that's 20 millimeters, and we're gonna try different setups. Here we have the Wittnauer 242T Professional. Does complement it very well with the little green hoops and the black dial. It just makes the whole watch stand out. Obviously you do have a bit of glossy mirror finish a bit on the sub dials, but it's super cool overall. I find that this is a perfect pattern for this watch. Again, we're gonna try something different. We're gonna try the same strap on the GMT. I find that although the collar of the strap does match perfectly or near perfectly with the dial, I find that the green might be a bit too much here, but overall it's gonna depend on what kind of look you really want to go for. Let's try a different strap. Let's go with something black. This is, I think, as well a 20 millimeter. Yeah, so this is 20. If you go on a sub, as you see, that's a classic side stitching pattern, almost matte finish on the leather, and then you have a double hoop right here, very classy. And you're gonna have a watch that looks just, you know, just as simple as it gets. There's no frills here. There's nothing that actually makes the watch just stand out in an improper way. Therefore, you have a 5513 here that will just be on its own, do what it's supposed to be doing, and also you can wear this while being at work. If you're working in an office, it's just perfect. I think it's more European to actually wear sports watches on leather, but I do enjoy them myself on leather all the time. I do have a 5513 here that's pretty unique in terms of color pattern. It's nearly unpolished. It's, you know, it was just slightly polished, I think, here, very slightly in the past. Overall, it's super cool. I went with the military NATO strap that I believe Tudor stopped making now, and I've had this for years. I don't know which watch it came from, but I found it so cool with this watch, and it just gives it a lot of character and just enhances the color of the dial and the color of the insert bezel, which is basically turning green blue, and it just makes it pop all the way. But if we go with something that might enhance it even better, let's have a look at the kind of straps that this might do a better justice. Let's go with something a bit crazy here if we can. I like colors, so let's go with this one. So we're on a 20. Obviously, you see that if you go with orange, it might be a bit too much, although the minimal stitching, which is in the middle this time on the strap, is making the watch pop really nicely. It's a bit too much. It tones down the color of the dial itself, and I find that this might be actually a bit too much for the watch itself. But as you can see, you can basically do a lot of mix and matching. I find that this is way too much for this. Let's go with something that's off the beaten path, something like a purple. As you can see, the colors on the back are very different from one another. If I choose different straps, you might have black, blue, dark blue, orange, you see even here, pink. I find that this has a lot of attention to detail overall, and we'll go with something that actually catches the yellow of the dial itself. Maybe the yellow is a bit too much here, but I kind of enjoy it. And what you have as well that's really cool in this case is that you have a strap that is a quick release. So you have a strap that has something that actually tones down the dial. The yellow here, the bright yellow, does bring down the patina a bit lower. I see it. It's tremendous how a strap might change the watch itself on the spot. Again, we have something that's a bit more firm here, but as soon as I would put it on my wrist, it would be very comfortable right away. And you do have something that fits perfectly. As you see, 20 millimeters is very important. If we go with something that's more gold, here we have the Eaton that's super clean. And we go with something like a 19 millimeter strap that is, again, like I can eye them pretty well from afar. As you see, if we go with something that's really toned down on the watch, but in this case we have the minimal stitch on the watch, so let me put it here. If you look at the way it fits, I find that the minimal stitching is actually removing from the watch. So ideally, when we have a watch in this case like that, minimal stitching is working very well with sports watches, but in this case with a classic watch might be a bit too much and a bit too sporty for the watch itself. So if you look here, we have a watch with a black dial that actually pops really well. Dial is immaculate. This one does have a caliber 390, 12369 markers. It does remind me of a Explorer, but this one actually is most probably even rarer than a lot of Explorers out there. This one does work perfectly on a stainless steel. The white and the steel just complement themselves, and you have a black dial that is really perfect with the military green or almost military green type of strap. It does impact a lot to have different straps for different watches. And you have to understand that you cannot just do anything or everything. Again, it's your choice. I'd say if you do choose to go with a more sporty strap, I would choose the proper watch for it if I were you. And also, I would go with something that's very, very respectful of the design of the watch itself, the colors, the patina, and everything else that you're actually choosing to match it with. Lastly, I'm gonna go with something super simple here. What I have here is a Speedmaster from 1962, and if we go with something that's very classic, I would go, that's not it. Let me go with something a bit more classy. We have 19 millimeters exactly on the Speedmaster. If we go with something very classy brown, that might work very well. Or there you go, just because we have a little bit of a pattern here, so this is a flannel leather that works very well with watches. It's something that just gives it a bit of oomph without giving it too much pattern. And obviously, if you do want to go with some crazy letters, you can do that as well. So if we go with something that has a bit more pattern, this pattern is a bit bigger. This was another maker here locally that was making amazing straps, Diametris. Sadly, he actually closed shop. They were too busy with working two different jobs and doing this at the same time. So I was able to actually buy a bunch of straps when they closed up a few years back. But I did have a lot of having their straps, and they were hand making them and everything as well. What's cool here, as you can see, you have a whole difference in pattern, and it just changes the watch completely. This one just gives it a bit more of a better tone overall. And the grain in the leather, the fake grain, the case of the Saffiano, is the way the leather is pressed, just gives it a whole different look, and it does look like a watch that's a lot more elevated just by the strap itself. Just the pattern, just the colors that match perfectly just give watches a totally different look. To finish off, I'm gonna choose a strap for myself, and hopefully you guys tell me if I did right or wrong. I'm gonna be wearing it for the next few days, most probably. So what I did like a lot was this 20 millimeter strap, very minimalist, very military looking. I think this actually caught my eye personally. It's something that I really enjoy. I hope you actually see the pattern, and let's try to find a 20 millimeter Rolex pin. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna change the strap. On vintage Rolexes, it's pretty easy. Basically, just put the pin inside, just equalize the strap completely. If you go with vintage Rolexes, you have a pin that actually does the whole lug width, whereas the new bracelets and new straps are actually attached with pins that are actually shorter, so they're not as long as the width of the lugs. But you do have a bit of a problem there. What happens is that the springs that they're using are very, very strong, so sometimes they're really hard to remove. Whereas the vintage Rolexes, I find them much better in terms of flexibility on leather bands. You can basically just slide on the band, and you use, obviously, like right now I have no nails, so it's gonna be a bit harder, but just slide it in, then you push it towards the hole, it grabs, and then you have basically a push pin that's a lot longer. So the little pin that sticks out is a lot longer on vintage Rolexes because it actually catches into the case, and sometimes they even almost come out of the side holes for quick removal. Same thing on the other side, and just push on it slightly. You push on the tube, okay, to equalize with the rest of the case, and then you actually push on, and you have a brand new strap on the wrist. It's so comfortable, it makes no sense. There you go, you have a strap that's super elegant, just change the whole looks of the watch. It actually complements very well the green, actually even makes it stand out. And with time, what happens is that all those leather bands that are practically, natural, or if you have a green like this, it's normally gonna turn a bit darker, If you have something like a light brown or a caramel brown, it's gonna turn dark over time. It's gonna have the wear, and you know, if you have a pattern where basically you're desk diving, obviously you're gonna have more rash towards the back, and then something that's very, you know, very unique to your daily lifestyle. I hope you guys found it valuable, me sharing what I did. I find a lot of YouTubers out there are talking about the different topics. This was covered in the past, but I'm lucky enough to be able to, you know, have a store, be able to actually share it with the inventory that I'm actually buying. And obviously here we have a pretty huge inventory of new straps that came in, and it's super cool to be able to choose from what we get on hand and actually showcase in reality how many different colors, how many different patterns. You can almost say that every single strap that came from Reef in this batch is unique, so we don't have really similar or identical straps with the same stitching, with the same color patterns. So that's the most important part, is that although I just bought almost 100 straps here, not one of them is identical to the other one, and that's what I want. That's what you guys have to understand. So you don't need to actually go and spend thousands of dollars on a new watch and change it right on the spot. You can literally just spend $100 or a couple of $100 and change the whole looks of your beloved watch. Okay, on my end, I've seen that, you know, a lot of people try to buy a bunch of straps for their watches, and I'd say even there, if you try good leather, you're not gonna go back. I find that, for example, Hermes makes amazing leather bands, amazing watch straps. I've had the chance to actually own a few. I have a few in stock right now, but I find that for $800 it's a bit too much, even though the leather is amazing. But there are really good choices out there of affordable straps. Again, I find that Reef is doing very well. His straps are lasting my customers a long time, unless obviously if you go crazy and you go wash the dishes every day, you don't let the leather band dry up right away, the leather is not going to resist on the long term. So I'd say if you do want a good strap, take good care of it. It's a luxury good as well, but it's gonna last you a few years, or up to 5-10 years if you take really good care of it. Hope you enjoyed, guys. Let me know in the comments if there's anything else that you actually liked here or you want to hear about. I hope this video will help you save a few bucks if you did want to change your watch, and it's much easier to actually change a strap in a few seconds, and you will change the whole looks of what you're wearing. Thank you, guys.